Tashtele ngeming la tenzi kungi nga sane Minnesota chidin sokpe ki gyule nangla shenge da shudu ki genzi ani pande Sisur Lobsang Sangay la kume sane chidin sokpa sane shunul henzo sane pemel henzo sane peranze loptu sokpa tang Youth for Umaylam sokpa nga tsapshune tsamli tashtele shugiye Tering shenge solo yaku kota chaya chido Sisur shoki kalob London di ingenang gotishu di chintanga ingene shucho. So on behalf of the 5 organizations of this event, which include Tibetan American Foundation of Minnesota, the Regional Tibetan Youth Congress of Minnesota, Regional Tibetan Women's Association of Minnesota, Students for a Free Tibet Minnesota, and Youth for Umaylam, we would all like to warmly welcome Sisur to Minnesota and to our community center. So, when we typically talk about Tibet with our classmates or our friends, what do we tell them? Huh? It's cold?
No, it's cool.
It's cool, yeah, it's very cool. Yeah.
It's a special place.
Exactly, it's a special place. We tell everyone that Tibet is a special place. We have special culture, right? We tell them that our different chuas, how beautiful they are. We tell them about our very unique but very delicious food, right? Like zamba and peja. And we tell them about the majestic and very important Potala Palace, which I'm sure most of us have as our wallpaper for our laptop or framed somewhere in our house. Yeah, so we tell them all these things, right? But we also tell them that His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama should be residing in the Potala Palace. We tell them that the People's Republic of China has impacted Tibet and continues to impact Tibet. And we tell them about the challenges that are faced by our brothers and sisters inside Tibet, right? So now the question is, what should we be doing, right? What should we be doing as young Tibetan Americans to make sure that Tibet is alive and Tibet is heard? What should we be doing to ensure that our brothers and sisters inside Tibet are being supported, their voices are being shouted from the rooftops? What can we be doing to ensure that other people, not just Tibetans, will also advocate for Tibet, right? So to answer those questions, or to help answer those questions, we have today's talk, which is focused on positioning Tibet on the global agenda. And so through today's talk with Sisur and our youth interviewers, we hope to equip Tibetan youth with the knowledge to effectively advocate for the Tibetan cause by understanding the global landscape that Tibet fits into, as well as preserving and utilizing the youth's unique Tibetan American identity amidst evolving challenges. So with that being said, before we start the main program, I will pass it off to Regional Tibetan Youth Congress Vice President Chugi Rangkola to provide a brief biography about Sisur.
My name is Chugi Rangkola, and I'm the Vice President of RTYC-Minnesota. First of all, I would like to thank Bande Sisur Lobsang Sangay for setting aside time out of his busy schedule to attend this event and share his wisdom with all of us. I would also like to thank everyone here in attendance for their support. Today I have the privilege of sharing a short biography and a list of achievements of Sisur Lobsang Sangay. Lobsang Sangay was born on September 9th, 1968 in Darjeeling, India. Fast forwarding to his college years, Lobsang Sangay received his Bachelor of Laws degree from the University of Delhi. In 1992, Lobsang Sangay was elected the youngest executive member of the Tibetan Youth Congress Centrics. In 1995, Lobsang Sangay received a Fulbright scholarship to study at Harvard Law School, where he subsequently received his Master of Laws degree and Doctor of Judicial Science degree. During his time at Harvard, Lobsang Sangay organized many conferences that sparked dialogue between Chinese and Tibetan students, and even organized a meeting between Chinese students and His Holiness the Dalai Lama. On September 20th, 2012, Lobsang Sangay was appointed as the first Sikong of the Central Tibetan Administration after His Holiness the Dalai Lama devolved their political responsibility. During his time as Sikong, Lobsang Sangay promoted a peaceful, nonviolent approach to resolve the Tibet-China issue. Lobsang Sangay was re-elected for a second term in 2016, where he introduced the 550 strategy, which seeks autonomy based on the middle way approach, as well as plans to strengthen and sustain the Tibetan movement and preserve Tibetan culture. Lobsang Sangay visited various capitals and parliaments around the world, putting Tibet on the global stage and opening people's eyes to the human rights violations in Tibet. In November of 2020, Lobsang Sangay became the first leader of the exiled Central Tibetan Administration to visit the White House in 60 years. This historic event marks the recognition of the Tibetan government by the United States government. Lobsang Sangay made it his priority to go to Washington, D.C. and to lobby for Tibetan policies, which led to the passage of Tibetan Policy and Support Act 2020, signed by the United States government. Lobsang Sangay and his Gasha not only made great strides in politics, but in other areas as well. They improved the quality of education and school facilities in Tibetan schools in India. Youth involvement was encouraged with the introduction of the Tibet Corps Volunteer Program, which created a platform for young Tibetans with the objective of familiarizing them with the operations of the Central Tibetan Administration and fostering future politicians. The Tibetan Medicare system was established, providing necessary medical assistance to Tibetans who otherwise would not be able to receive it. In his 2 terms, he advocated for the Tibetan cause and carried out the responsibilities entrusted on him by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan people. After his time as Sikong, Lobsang Sangay is still spreading awareness about the Tibetan issue to all parts of the world and sharing his wisdom at events like this. Now Lobsang Sangay will be setting the scene and providing us with updates of recent activities and developments. After that, SFT, Lobsang Sangay and Lobsang La and Youth for Umaylam will conduct the interview with Sisur and Lobsang Sangay. Also, we will be distributing Q&A note cards to the audience. With those, please fill out any questions you would like to ask, and we will be collecting them at the end of the interview.
Stop it!
My turn to speak. Hello, everybody. Oh, this is Actually, I travel quite a bit. I'm coming from Asia. Yeah, 6 hours plus. From Delhi to here, Delhi to New York is 16 hours, and flew here. So I think I should stand and speak, no? How do you feel normally when you fly to India? You get jet lag?
Yeah.
You feel sleepy?
Yeah. I feel
Drowsy? Yeah, you don't feel like eating, you just feel like sleeping for how many days? 3-4 days? Yeah? And now why are you making me stand and speak today? Huh?
You stand up for only 1 hour.
I stand for only 1 hour?
Only stand up and then start sleeping more.
2 hours?
Yeah, usually I would just take a look at the window for more than an hour.
Okay, thanks to everybody. So I just want to thank RTYC, Children Sokpa, Students of Free Tibet, Youth for Umaylam, and Tibetan Women's Association for hosting me. Very kind of you. And I can see all the very dynamic executive members sitting on this side with your questions ready. Yes? Okay. And we have President monitoring the whole event from that side. That's very good. So Teshle, once again. And I'm supposed to speak on positioning Tibet in the global agenda. Right? How to position Tibet in the global agenda. Yeah? How are you going to position it? Any suggestions? Okay. And I'll ask you an easy question. How many Taylor Swift fans? Swifties. Huh? That's easy. Okay. BTS fans. Actually, I just came from Korea. I went to Seoul. Yes, I was in Korea. I had dinner with BTS. Actually, I was in Korea actually, and yeah, I had Korean barbecue. Yeah, and BTS says hi to all of you. Okay, and the plane I also met Taylor Swift, Drake. Yeah, we all were sitting together. Yeah. That's true. And Weekend, yeah. They sang for me as well. Do you want to listen to what they sang for me? Actually, I traveled, so far, so my voice not doing that well actually. Otherwise, I'm going to say karma is a beach or something like that. Yeah. No, I got it wrong. Okay. What about levitation? Huh? No? Oh, the president already opened my PowerPoint presentation, so she said get to the point. So I got it. So now, okay, this audience is a bit small for me, but so we have to how to position Tibet in the global order, global agenda. Now we must know where the global agenda was and is. Okay, liberal international world order. That was the past global order, right? So how many of you know liberal international world order? No? So that's in the past. And now we are in the new world order, okay? So end of history, how many have you heard of the book End of History? Fukuyama? No? Okay, you should have read that book. If not, now you can summarize the book, no? Google summarize. This book became very famous because after the Soviet Union collapsed, Berlin Wall came down. It says end of history now. Liberal democracy has won, and democracy, human rights, peace, dialogue will prevail. Okay? And why it's important? Tibet at that time, we rode that wave. So we said we are democratic, We say human rights is a problem inside Tibet, and environment is a major issue, and we believe in dialogue, and we believe in peace. And we rode that wave. And that's why Tibet became a major issue in 1990s and all the way to 2000, right? Okay? And actually, for us, Tibet and His Holiness Dalai Lama were interchangeable. In that, from 1990 on to 2000, let's say, okay? 90 to 2010. So that was the liberal international world order. For 20 plus years, we rode that wave and said, His Holiness Dalai Lama represents for non-violence, for peace, we believe in dialogue, democracy, human rights, and that was the wave. And we rode that wave, and Tibet became a major issue. Right? Okay. President is so efficient, huh? Now this is the new global order. It's not yet sorted out what it's going to be, but this is the discourse. Now people say this is the era of war and peace. So they say, if you want peace, prepare for war. Right? So there's war in Ukraine. Yeah? There's war in Israel and Palestine. Iran, Syria. Yes or no? There's so many violence going on around the world, right? So that era of peace has now transitioned to era of war and conflicts. Oh, that's my coffee. Yeah. So,
Starbucks.
yeah, Starbucks, yeah.
Starbucks, but everyone.
You know, you know what I'm going to drink?
What?
Cappuccino with oat milk. My favorite is actually white chocolate mocha.
Why did you
So, now this era, okay, because there's at business school there's a class called War and Peace, very popular. So popular that more than 200 students attend that class. It became so popular from last year on. They have one more classes. And I teach, when they teach on Russia and China, I teach the class on China. So I teach about 400 students. I teach the China part. So this class analyzes 2,000 years of wars, how it happened from conflict resolution point of view, how it happened, why it happened, so all that. So now we have entered an era of conflicts and war. Right? Now, as I said, the liberal global world order, they subscribe and they promoted democracy. Right? Democracy is a big thing. And then, end of history said so many countries were becoming democratic. How many of you know an author, very famous author called Samuel Huntington? No? Any one of you? This is the test, huh? So, Third Wave is a very popular book called Third Wave, in which there's a first wave of democratic countries, second wave of democratic countries, and third wave of democratic countries. Essentially, the argument was that so many countries were becoming democratic that whole world will be democratic. Got it? Yeah?
I got it.
So I was given a very major topic, global order, and then I'm yet to find a single person who has read a single book or an article on these major issues. Okay, if you want to put Tibet in the global order, you should have read or at least heard of these people. Okay. Now, instead of promotion and embracing democracy, what's the biggest topic nowadays taught? Democratic backsliding. Have you heard of this term, democratic backsliding? No? Meaning, more countries are becoming non-democratic than democratic. Do you know in this present world, there are more non-democratic countries than democratic countries. So in the year 1990s, all the way to 2010, more countries were becoming democratic. Now there's a reverse. More countries are non-democratic than democratic. Right? So, and then populism. Rise of populism, okay? So make America great again. It's part isolationist, part country's interest first. America's interest first, right? That essentially it means. And then realism and neocon, I won't get into it. This is, international relations terms, okay? You should take notes of all these things and then study, okay? Then you get deeper into it. Now, how many of you have heard Thucydides' trap?
What?
That word. How much money do you make? $2. Yeah. So, you should read this book, okay? All of you, write this book. This book again talks about great power rivalry. So according to this book, so whenever there's a power number one, let's say America is number one, right? Now China is trying to challenge it. So whenever there's a great power rivalry, there's already number one, number two is challenging you. Whenever this kind of scenario arises, what happens? 12 out of 16 times, they decide through war. Right? So now we are in this new era. So there is America number one, China wants to be or replace America and wants to be number one. So in the past, whenever during 16 times, 12 times were decided through war, meaning there is 75% chances that this global order will be decided through war. So this is the new global order. As I said, war and peace, democracy is backsliding, rise of populism, and part isolationism, part realism. New con means neoconservative, okay? So this is where we are. Now, is there going to be a war between America and China? What do you think?
Maybe, yeah, most likely.
Yeah? Raise your hands, raise your hands. Who says yes? Very few. Who says no? Ah, so many peace doves, huh? Okay.
I don't say anything. War.
Now, it affects us, right? Because we are in America, right? China continues to occupy Tibet. Yes? Tibet is under China's occupation? Yes or no? Yes. So whatever happens to China affects us. Whatever happens to America affects us. Now, as per history, there is 75% chances that this also great power rivalry will be decided through war. Right? How many of you are Vikings fan? Okay. If there is 75% chances that Vikings will win, you take that bet or no? Or if someone says there's only 25% chances the Vikings will win, which one do you prefer? 75, right? So there's 75% chances that there will be a war, and this rivalry will be decided through war. And it affects us. Now, how are we going to put Tibet in this contest, in this conflict? How are we going to put it? Are you for war or not for war? Are you for America or are you for China? So you all are for war? Yeah?
Why don't we just use it?
So we have to think, okay? This is the reality evolving. Why I said this is, in the liberal international world order, peace, dialogue, democracy, human rights were the main theme. And we rode that wave. Which wave are we going to ride? Which wave you want to ride? So we say, again, you know this Davidson window? Heard of this? Okay. This is also very important. Davidson was admiral. He was the commander in charge of Pacific Command, okay? America's admiral, who is in charge of the Navy, let's say Navy in the Pacific, essentially dealing with China and Asia. He said, by 2027, China's naval power will be ready, will be far greater than America, and will invade or occupy Taiwan. That's what he said. He said in 2021. And Bill Burns, do you know Bill Burns, CIA director? He also said that President Xi Jinping has given direction to his generals to prepare for war to take over Taiwan by 2027. So this is called Davidson window because Admiral Davidson said so. It's called, this is the window. Now if you want to do something against China, we must do it before 2027. Otherwise China will be far better, at least in number. From Navy point of view, they'll be better prepared. So this is called Davidson window. So as I said, Thucydides trap, 75% chances there will be war. And Davidson has already said there will be a war by 2027. And CIA Director has also said that Xi Jinping, Chinese president, told his generals to be prepared for war. Got it? Now, how are we going to, put Tibet? Which way you're going to go? How are we going to position ourselves? If there's a war over Taiwan, how are we going to position ourselves? Any thoughts? We have very bright, young, dynamic Tibetan youth leaders are here. Any thoughts? You want to boycott the war? Then, international community, whoever wins the war will also boycott you. Right? So if you want to put Tibet as an agenda, you can boycott, they will also boycott you, you won't be in the agenda. Presently, again it's a sad case, it's a fact. If you Google Tibet and if you search for maps, do you find Tibet in the global map? No. Why? Again, it's a fact, it's a sad story, but Tibet has disappeared from the map. Yes or no? Now, also, historically, Tibet was independent, right? Yes or no? But how many people know that Tibet was historically independent? Which textbook teaches that? So you see, we are disappearing from the map. We are disappearing from history books. Now, China has audacity to say that you can't call Tibet Tibet, but you should call Tibet Xizang. Do you know this? Chinese government is saying, oh, Tibetans, you can't call Tibet Tibet, but you have to call Xizang, you have to use Chinese word. Yes. So they want to erase the word Tibet from the lexicon.
What about the universe?
Yeah? From the universe too. So, do you find it challenging?
What about time?
That's why Chinese government is doing this, okay? Now, how do we put Tibet back in the agenda? So it can be talked about, it can be discussed, it can be debated, and we get the support. Yeah?
Just tell everyone.
Yes, you should tell everyone.
Everyone, everything.
My teacher has been to Tibet.
You can just tell it even
So there's a new Cold War. There's the axis of evil. China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea are working together. Okay? In the case of Ukraine, you can clearly see that. So this is how we have to redefine. Next slide. Now, Uyghur. Now, when you say Uyghur, what do you know of Uyghur? There's a genocide. Yes? If the genocide is Uyghur, right? And if it's Hong Kong, do you remember umbrella movement? Yeah? When you say Taiwan, what do they say now? Taiwan is so important. Why? They manufacture semiconductor or chips, right? Every car, every phone, every refrigerator, any technology that you have, gadget you have, has chips inside. And is high-end ones are manufactured in Taiwan. So they say if Taiwan is invaded by China, it will cost the world economy how much? 8 to 13 trillion dollars. Yes. So that's what they say. So my point is they have put Taiwan right in the global agenda by saying we are so important. If China invades us, you will lose semiconductor. If you lose semiconductor, then that will affect 8 to 13 trillion dollars worth of economy of the world. Now, how do you define Tibet? What is one word that defines Tibet? Uyghur, genocide, Hong Kong, umbrella movement, Taiwan, semiconductor. Tibet? What is Tibet? One issue that defines Tibet.
Same as
Yeah? What? Water? Water is 1 point. My point is, unless, right? we managed to define Tibet in such a way that is so important for the world. Affects economy, what affects morality or ethics or anything. Till you come up with that agenda, you can't put Tibet in the global agenda. So that's why we have to work hard. How do we bring Tibet in the map of the world? Yes? Okay, next. Actually, I just prepared this at Newark Airport, okay? Just before plane took off, I just wrote this down, some of the points. So I'm heavily jet lagged, and some of the talking points that I put in. So from my part, I left Boston on November 22nd. Today is? How many days I've been out? A month? I think you have to improve your mathematics. So, 22nd, today is 14th, how many days? 22 days? 32 days, right? So I went to Halifax Security Forum in Canada. Then I went to Delhi. Then I went to Guwahati. Then I went to Dubai. Then I went to Singapore. Then I went to Korea, Seoul to meet BTS people. Yeah. And I went to Taiwan. Then I'm here in Minnesota. How many places?
7.
Or 8? Yeah? 7? Okay, in 22 days. Why I do this? Partly to create awareness, meet people, tell them what's going on in Tibet. Partly to understand what's going on around the world. Right? So how can we define Tibet in such a way that we can put it in the agenda? Because you have to study. So I went to Ukraine also. I went to Ukraine. I went to Kyiv. You know Ukraine war?
Yeah.
There's a war going on, right? I went there. It took me 15 hours from Poland, Warsaw, to go to Kyiv by train. 3-day, what do you call it? Bed, right? And I got the top bunker and no seats. So you have to travel 15 hours. Can you do that? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. And then I spent 36 hours. Someone is trying to call me. In Kyiv, and 6 p.m. I was meeting people whole day. I was meeting journalists, scholars, politicians, NGO activists, things like that. And at 6 p.m. we were having dinner. At 6:30 there was if you go to Ukraine, there is an app. Right? App shows a map of Ukraine and all the maps of the of the region, including Kyiv. And starts beeping, right? What it means? So, missiles, Russian missiles. Russia was firing missiles, and it was hitting Kyiv. And I was in Kyiv. So the app starts beeping. It says, "Oh, there's an Iranian Shahed drone is coming, and he's going to hit Kyiv." We all are having dinner. What will you do if the missile is coming towards you? What will you do? Okay, how many will say run? Raise your hands. Yeah, and then go to the basement. How many of you go to the basement? Yeah? Okay. But in the restaurant, no one went to the basement. Everybody kept eating and drinking. Yeah. And I was told I have a choice to go to the bunker or not. As per security detail, I should be, but everybody were eating and drinking. And I said, how long do I have to stay in the basement? They said 45 minutes. By the time I come out, all my friends will be gone. And I also decided to stay and eat and drink and continue to chat. And then the sirens went, ooh, huh? You can hear it. And suddenly, bang, missile hit somewhere in the neighborhood. At 10 p.m., I was in my hotel room. Because imagine, okay, I travel 15 hours by train, arrive 5 a.m., then the whole day I've been meeting people, right? So 10 p.m., again my friend called me and I said, well, 2 more drones are coming and going to hit Kyiv tonight. What am I going to do? What will you do? 2 more bombs come to you towards your way. Leave the whole place? Yes. And what did I do?
I'd be scared.
I went to sleep. Next morning, I was told at midnight and 3 a.m., 2 drones hit Kyiv, somewhere nearby. And Kyiv is the capital of Ukraine.
Oh, I like
Yeah. So, I went to sleep because I didn't sleep for like 15 plus hours, for 12 hours, 37 hours, right? So I went to sleep. My point is, there's a war going on in Ukraine. And I was amazed by their courage. People in Ukraine, I met youth who still drives. They drive minivan filled with dry food to deliver at the war zones. There's a war going on, and elderly people, they refuse to leave their village. They still want to stay home. And these young people, they work from Monday to Friday. They have jobs. But then weekend, they drive minivans filled with food and go deliver them. While you deliver, Russian army shoot at you. They fire RPG, you know RPG? Fire at you. Sometimes they die. But still they drive, minivan for like 10 hours to 20 hours to 30 hours to deliver food. Everybody was so prepared. Why they were not going to the bunker whenever missiles hit Kyiv or anywhere in Ukraine? They were saying, we are going to defy. This is an act of defiance. We want to send a message to Putin that you are trying to scare us. You want us to run and hide by shooting missiles at us, but we are not going to do that. We're going to eat our food, walk around, do shopping, whatever we have to do, we'll do it like normal people do, no matter how many missiles hit at us. See, first thing we all think is run and hide. Ukrainians saying, no, we are not going to run or hide. But this is an act of defiance. Sending message to Kyiv, sending message to Moscow, right? And I can tell you many stories that during Q&A, but this is what Ukrainians are doing. I went to Taiwan, and then Taiwan also, just for 4 days, from Tuesday to Friday, there were so many drills were happening. Many submarines, and ship, and then all were patrolling and trying to threaten Taiwan. So I go to all these forums to understand what's going on in Europe, what's going on in Asia, what's going on in different places. So how are they able to put their issue in the agenda? And how come Tibet has now more or less disappeared from the discourse? Is no more in the headlines. Have you read or watched Tibet in any of the American news media recently?
Yep.
Has CNN shown anything on Tibet recently? CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox? No, right?
Mostly not.
BBC? No.
No.
In recent years, Tibet has disappeared. Why? Because we are yet to make Tibet an agenda. And the question is, how can we make Tibet an agenda? Because Mongolians have been able to, Uyghurs have been able to do it. Hong Kongers have been able to do it. Taiwanese are able to do it. Now what about us?
I know.
So that's the big question, okay? So with that, I'm hoping that I will find answers among you by the end of this talk at 3:30 or 3:45. We will get Tibet as an agenda, and we will be able to put in the global agenda, right? Okay, with that, thank you very much.
you, Sisur. For the next about 20 minutes or so, we're going to have an interview session. We're going to have an interview session with Sisur, hosted by SFT's Lobsang and Youth for Umaylam's Somola. And in the meantime, through these discussions, if you guys have any questions that come up or any comments, we're going to pass out these note cards. So you guys can write your question on there, and at the end, we'll read off your questions from those cards. Thank you. Hello.
Just listen to thank you for the inspiring speech earlier. We were truly honored to continue the conversation with you and learn more about your experiences and insights that you have to impart to the Tibetan youth today. So before we go on to our questions, we would like to introduce ourselves briefly. My name is Tenzin Somo. I'm representing Youth for Umaylam. We're a Minnesota-based organization focused on raising awareness about the middle way approach.
My name is Lobsang. I'm with Students for Free Tibet, Minnesota, and I think we'll begin now. So to start, could you share how do you see the outcome of the presidential election influencing international support for Tibet? Additionally, what role do you believe the evolving relationship between U.S. and China will play in shaping global perceptions of the Tibetan movement?
Hello. Yeah, I did answer part of the question, but as far as recent election is concerned, on the one hand, Tibet has been a bipartisan issue. Someone is too close to the. Yeah, you should turn it off. Yeah. Tibet has been a bipartisan issue. So it doesn't matter whether Democrat or Republican wins the election. For example, the Tibetan Policy Support Act, when I was introduced, when we lobbied the Congress, House was with the Democrats, and the Senate was with the Republicans, and we had to lobby both. Thankfully, at that time, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a very good friend of ours, who fell and who's hospitalized now, and we all should pray for a quick recovery, said, we will take care of the House, and then you should take care of the Senate, which is controlled by Republicans. So we lobbied the Republicans, the Senate, and finally we managed to pass the law. And then at that time, who was the president in 2020? President Trump. So President Trump signed the law, right? Now it's law in America to support Tibet. And in that law, CTA was acknowledged, Sikong office was acknowledged, right? So if you are thinking of President Trump in his second term, actually he was the one who signed it into a law. And then I managed to enter the State Department and the White House in October of 2020 and November 2020. At that time, again, it was Republican, but the president was Trump, right? So, you can do a lot of things. Whether, Republican is in charge of the House or Congress, House or Senate, or the White House. But it all depends how you articulate your case, how you place your case, and make it an important issue. Okay?
Thank you for that response. I'll move on to the second question. So it's a two-part question. The first one is, so given the evolving landscape of global advocacy and the growing need for youth leadership, how do you see the role of Tibetan youth in shaping global discussions on Tibet, and what strategies can they use to collaborate with international organizations or governments to effectively elevate the Tibetan cause? And then additionally, also as Lobby Day approaches, a lot of the Tibetan youth are involved in lobbying. So do you have any tips for the Tibetan youth to better engage with politicians and garner support for the Tibetan cause?
So do remind me of the second question. Sure. Okay, later. The grassroots activism is the way to go, I do believe that. For example, in France, we all know about the incident, right? The French Museum used to be called Tibet Exhibition, and they changed it to Shizang exhibition, right? And another museum called it Himalayan exhibition. But then mainly youth, mainly people of France, Tibetans, they organized demonstrations. And after many days of demonstrations, both the museum changed it back to Tibet. So grassroots activism and demonstration is, our strength was also a grass movement. Tibet, you know, why Tibet was such a major issue, mainly because of His Holiness Dalai Lama, mainly because of His Holiness Dalai Lama, but also because of grassroots activism in 1990s and 2000s. I think the sound box is too close here, yeah?
Yeah.
I think sound box is very close. Right. Okay. So if you want to put Tibet in the global agenda, we all should. How many of you, is there a protest on Wednesday here? You have Hakar dance, right? Do you have Hakar protest? No?
We have Lakar Moshe.
Hakar Gorshe is there, I know. In Boston, since 2008, every Wednesday, there's a protest outside of Harvard Square. Whether it snows or rains, there's always 5 or 3 or 10 or 20 people. Since 2008, protest is going on. That's a small indication, but there's so many other places, you know. In Toronto, we have Sangay Camp, who always, you know, take parts in, he cycles around the world, he cycles around Canada, right? He has a vigil outside Canadian Consulate every Wednesday. So grassroots activism is a must. If you don't organize demonstrations and protests, people won't see you. If they don't see you, they'll forget you. So I'm always for any kind of protests and demonstrations, you know, and then of course building coalitions, coordinating with other organizations, with common agenda, participating in their issues, understanding their issues. Primarily nowadays, I'm also trying to build a coordination among Uyghurs, Hong Kongers, Taiwanese, Mongolian together. Because I always say, we all get, you know, 5 or 10 minutes to speak. Each time we speak, we must raise all other issues. So when you get a time to speak for Tibet, we should always raise about Hong Kong, Taiwan, you know, Uyghur issues as well. That's how you coordinate, form coalition, and you know, you can magnify your voices. Now, as for your second was lobby day, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Lobbying is very important, but you should be very smart about it. Normally what you do is you get talking points. For example, I was meeting with Senator from Minnesota. Yes. So whenever I go to any senator's or congressman's office, first thing I always talk about, in this America, you have to talk about sports. Oh, Minnesota, Vikings, they get so excited, you know. If it's Massachusetts Patriots, Baltimore Ravens, you know. So you should know your sports very well. Why? If you want to meet a senator, if you know the senator's sports team very well, you talk it out, and the staff will like you. They'll allow you to meet senator. For example, His Holiness was in Washington, D.C., and Senator John Kerry was the chairman of Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And I was sitting at that time, and there was this talk whether I should be allowed to meet Senator Kerry or not, whether I should be allowed to attend the Senate Foreign Relations Committee meeting which was hosting His Holiness. And I was at the Capitol, and I met Senator Kerry's staff. And I said hello, and we started talking. And I said, by the way, please tell Senator Kerry that I'm a Red Sox fan. And I look at Yankees. I look at China like we look at Yankees. Right? So the staff told Senator Kerry. Next day I was allowed to attend the meeting. Right? And the Senator Kerry, in the presence of His Holiness, introduced me as saying, oh, I have a Red Sox and Patriots fan, Lobsang Sangay. You see? He didn't say Sejong first, he said Red Sox and Patriots fan. So when you go lobby, it's important to talk about Tibet. But how you get into, of course, getting into office is very easy, you get staff members. But if you want to meet higher staff, high level staff members, then you must know the issue very well. Yeah, what's going on? Huh? There's so many discussions. So some tougher questions are coming. Okay, I'll stop it here. Okay, continue.
Thank you for that response. I agree the intersectional nature of different movements connect Tibet and other organizations and ethnic groups.
And also, just before I forget, you must study other movements. Okay, for the civil rights movement, it went through up and down, right? More you study about other movements, more you understand where Tibet is and where it should go.
Thank you for that response. I would like to continue on with turning our attention to environmental advocacy. So Tibet's environmental stewardship has become increasingly crucial in the face of climate change and the Chinese government's exploitation of its natural resources. So as we all know, Tibet's role as the water tower of Asia and the third pole, due to having the third largest reserves of fresh water in the world, underscores its global significance. How can this be used to increase international support for the Tibetan cause, and what steps can we take to align Tibetan advocacy with global environmental and other intersectional movements?
Now we must make, for example, we talk about Tibet as the third pole, right? And it's the source of all the major rivers of Asia, and it's so important in Asia. But we must try to make it a global issue. For example, you said Tibet has the third highest reserve of fresh water. Now we must make an argument. I try to make an argument that third pole, Tibet, is more important than Antarctica and Arctic. Now, can I test you guys? Okay. You said Tibet is third pole, right? Who named it as the third pole and when? That's good. That's a good answer, yeah. Okay, how many of you? We all say third pole, right? Okay, who named it and when? Okay, and what is first and second pole? Yeah.
The North and South Pole, so like Antarctica and the Arctic Circle.
When was it named?
I'm not sure.
So, my point is, we must study more. See? When you go and make a presentation, we all are Pishuglopta product, I know that. We just memorize it and then just, say it loud. And without understanding, if some, why, of course, we should be spokesperson for Tibet, right? And we should say Tibet is third pole. It's good to memorize few lines, few data, and then say Tibet is very important. But then, when you have to speak at a bigger platform, at the biggest platform, this will not sail. Because we were always taught in Pishuglopta, oh, Tibet was independent, in 1959 Chinese army invaded, occupied Tibet, and 1.2 million Tibetans died, and 6,000 monasteries destroyed. We have memorized it all. It doesn't affect you. People who watch and listen to you, they don't get moved. Because if you just say these numbers and facts, it's just numbers and facts. But you must make it, that's what, my point is, you must study beyond what you're taught. So if someone says like this, okay, you said Tibet third pole, oh, what a wonderful idea. Oh, when was it, who was it, who called it third pole? If you don't know, you say, by the way, I've memorized whole page, I know how important it is, but I don't know who named it, and when was it named, I don't know, right? Then it's like, they won't get convinced. Yes or no? Should I tell you, or you will do research?
You should tell me. You should tell me also.
Huh?
Tell me.
Yeah? You want to do research, or you want me to tell you?
Tell me. Tell me.
Talk away. Okay.
First name Mark.
Huh?
Mark something. Schultz. Is it Mark?
Mark?
Is it Mark?
Yeah. You're close. Huh?
Colts.
Very close. Yeah. When was it? Okay. The first pole and second pole now. Yeah?
Was it good Michael Wolf?
Michael Bock? No, I'm more on Schultz. He was a Swiss explorer. Okay? First pole and second pole were already named. And I think it was the 1930s. He went to Tibet, he saw the mountains, he said, oh, this could be called third pole. Right? And the book was published in 1950s. There are several chapters, and one chapter mentioned Tibet as the third pole. So you should know. Now the first pole and second pole was scientifically termed. The third pole, the Tibet got it from an explorer. And in 1970s, right, others started using it, and Chinese environmentalists felt that, oh, we should make Tibet as a very important issue, and they started using third pole. Right? So that's how it came about. Now, again, as I said, you all have memorized Tibet as third pole, right? How many rivers? Huh? Huh? What? 4 rivers?
I think there are 8 major rivers, but there are a lot of tributaries that come from those 8 major rivers.
The Tibet is a source of so many major rivers, but 8 out of 10 major rivers of Asia, that's what they call. Do you know the names?
I think so.
No, you can't Google, wait. It's too late. Huh? Everyone's Googling, yeah, that's too late, that's cheating. You're Tibetan, you should know this by heart. Huh?
Well, then the kids, who knows?
Okay, but what my point is this. So Visa Tibet is very important. But we must, to make it a global agenda, we must say how water is very important in the whole world. Right? Do you know why water is so important in the world?
We drink it. We waste it.
Okay, there are several facts. What is the population of the world now? 8 billion. But the food is produced for how many billion people? Huh?
10 trillion.
Okay. 8 billion people, food is produced for 10 billion people. Still is not sufficient. Because a lot of food is wasted because of lack of cold storage, right? And other things, right? But now, by 2050, what will be the population of the world? 10 billion people. Of which 5.6 billion will be in Asia. 5.6 billion, more than half. Of which 60% will live in urban areas, which means they need more water, fresh water. So now that's how you can connect Tibet with the global agenda. And also by I think in 2015, World Economic Forum came out with a report on crisis. Number one crisis was water. So you should know World Economic Forum, okay? You know the UN Secretary General Boutros Ghali, Kofi Annan, Ban Ki-moon, all have said there will be war over water. Now you see, you can connect Tibet with the global issue, right? UN Secretary General have said there will be war over water, and Tibet is the source of water. World population 10 billion, of which 5.6 billion will be in Asia. They need water, and Tibet is the source of water. That's how you make Tibet as a global issue.
Thank you for that response. I'll give the mic over to Osama.
Okay, we have one more question for you. You have been deeply involved in advocacy and activism since your youth, eventually rising to the role of Sigyon of the Central Tibet Administration. How have you sustained your momentum and maintained your spirit through the challenges of leadership and activism? Also, what advice would you give to young Tibetans who aspire to become an active and contribute to the Tibetan cause, but may feel discouraged at times?
How I have maintained my
How you maintain your spirit through the challenges of leadership?
practice equanimity. You know equanimity? Huh? Equanimity means when someone, don't get too excited, don't get too sad. Come back to the middle. That's equanimity. Because there's a saying, no, in Shantideva, okay, there's a quote. When someone criticizes you, don't get too sad, because remember, there are others praising you. When some praise you, don't get too excited, because remember, there are others criticizing you. Yes? So equanimity is important, and then persistence. For example, I traveled 22 days, 8 different places. Now I'm here in Minnesota, heavily jet lagged, but I still feel it's my responsibility to speak to Tibetan youth and to the public. And then I always say this, I am born a Tibetan, I'll die a Tibetan. Until I die, I'll continue to speak for Tibet and Tibetan people. That's how I think. Okay, now, questions among the public. Note card.
We distributed note cards earlier, if you can pass it along. So I'll read some questions from the audience. So the first question is, if Tibet became independent, what's the first thing you will do?
If Tibet became independent, what's the first thing I want to do? Improve education.
Another question reads, what motivated you to try so hard in education and get you to Harvard Law School, and also to be who you are today?
Oh, I was just, who asked me this question? Someone very high up. I was in Asia, so someone asked me this question. When did you think you are special? He said. And I said, I don't like to lose. And when someone says very difficult, I get very excited. When someone says, oh, Harvard Law School is very difficult to get into, I say, oh, I better go there. When I got into master's, when they said, oh, it's very difficult to get doctorate degree at Harvard, I said, I better do it. When someone said, oh, it's very difficult to get a job at Harvard, I said, I better do it. And then in 2021, after I finished my Sejong term, I came back and my professor told me to teach. And I felt, oh, I've never taught. Teaching is very different from giving a lecture. And I said, I got excited, initially a bit nervous. I said, I have to teach. This is a Harvard Law School student. And I taught the 2022 and 2023-24. And I'm happy to share as per the students' evaluation, how much did I get out of 10? 9.6 out of 10. So I become a good teacher as well.
Okay, our next question is, how much progress has happened so far? Are we almost at our goal?
How much progress we have made?
Yeah.
Not much. We are still in exile, no? Still way to go. But if you look in terms of refugees who have lost their countries, Tibetan government exile is the most efficient, most functioning government there is. If you compare exile communities, we are the best.
The next question is, what steps can leaders like you take to bridge divides and foster unity within the Tibetan community?
So unity is very important because without unity, because we are such a small community, as we say, with 5 fingers, people can break all your 5 fingers. But if you're united, then you become stronger. Similarly, in our community, I've always said this, we should not think in terms of regionalism. We should not think in terms of I'm Kampa, I'm Usang, I'm Amdo, I'm Sanjo, I'm Ningjo, I'm Shijaba, all that. We all must think we are Peba, we are Kangjemba, we are Tibetan. Our leader is His Holiness Dalai Lama, We must follow. He has great vision. He has led us very successfully till now. Now His Holiness is not able to travel outside. Now it's upon us to take the responsibility and put Tibet in the global agenda. From that point of view, because I've worked with His Holiness Dalai Lama so closely for 10 years, and then I've taken a pledge, as a Tibetan, that I will do my part. So that's why I've been traveling. For 22 days I've been traveling, and I'll keep traveling. And I have, if you look at my schedule, people often get tired. But then I don't get tired because I always think, oh, look at His Holiness, how much he has worked for Tibet. Look inside Tibet, how much Tibetans are suffering. And seeing that reality inside Tibet, what His Holiness done all these years, least I could do is continue his vision and continue to promote, his commitments. So I taught a class at Harvard Kennedy School on 4 commitments of His Holiness. Speaker I think it's off? Yeah. Something is going on, yeah. Are we near a speaker or something? Yeah. Continue.
Next is by Sring Nubu. What book recommendations do you have to us Tibetan youth to learn more about Tibet? Who are some famous people you have met that openly support Free Tibet movement?
Hello. As far as books are concerned, I already gave you the list, no? And I don't want to add any more because you always say, I think we should not invite Lobsang Sangay again because he'll give us 10 more books to read. And next time when I come, I will ask you direct questions from those books. As far as many important people, I think all the people that I met are more or less in my social media accounts. Having said that, recently I went to Taiwan. I do meet people, closed doors. I met senior advisors of the government of Taiwan. So I have one-on-one discussion with them, understand where Taiwan is, what are they thinking, what would they do if China invades them, do they believe whether Chinese army will invade Taiwan or not. Those kinds, are not publicized. But I have met, several, I should say, important people.
The next question is by Gisang Namgil. How did your time in Harvard shape your vision for leading the Tibetan people and community?
Harvard didn't shape my vision for Tibet and Tibetan community. As I said, I've always believed as a Tibetan. Before I joined Harvard, I was a youth activist. So I participated in many demonstrations, many protests. I should not give you this advice. When I was at Delhi University, my attendance at college was equal to my attendance in front of Chinese embassy. So my attendance was less than 50%. So I was studying less and participating in protests more. I'm not recommending you all do that, okay? Because in America, there's a strict rules. You must have 100% attendance or 90+% attendance, otherwise you won't be allowed to sit for exam. No? But I did that. So, but Harvard helped me improve, become a better leader, maybe become a better communicator. But one thing Harvard helped me was after a few years, I thought, if this is Harvard is, when I met all the students, interacted with them, I get to meet scholars and, professors, and we get a lot of dignitaries there as well. And I've heard students interact with them. Then once I saw the landscape, it gave me confidence, thinking, oh, if this is Harvard, then I'm okay, because I'm as good as them. So, but you all are equally good, huh? We all must think that, because I do remember, I had this student she was from Bhutan. She came to see Harvard campus, and I was showing her around, and she, in a way, she blurted it out and said, oh, this is Harvard, I always think them as demigod, something like that. And I said, no, the Harvard students are as human as you. And admission is so subjective, Some people get admitted to good colleges, some don't, right? I have met many people, many smart people outside of Harvard as well. So don't get too overwhelmed by Harvard. Is another university. This is very communicative now. We are sharing mics now. Yeah.
Now that we're talking about education, here's a question by Tenzin Zompa. She says, sometimes while I'm doing my schoolwork, I remember other things I have to do. I lose focus and I can't pay attention. How do I make sure I put all of my attention on one task instead of getting distracted?
Now I have to become education counselor. Everybody gets distracted, huh? For example, me, one of my weakness is I really wish, my English basic was strong. I went to Pishunglopta. So my English basic, grammar and all that, still quite poor. Even today, I have problems. I make grammatical mistakes. I mispronounce things, even today, right? But I don't think of my weakness. When I get up and speak, I don't think, oh, I might make some grammatical mistakes, I might mispronounce things, and I might embarrass myself. I don't think like that. I just think everybody make grammatical mistakes. Everybody mispronounce things, right? And I'm one of them. But as a Tibetan, I should represent Tibet. So when you study also, we all get distracted. Yeah, I mean, if you're Swifties, you listen to Taylor Swift song. If you're Weekend, whatever, Drake, we all do that. It's very normal. But you must schedule it in a way. And then they always say that I don't study one subject for, what do they say? For 2 hours? Recently they have come, what they call it, chunkies? Huh? Do you know this? Recently I just learned this term. Anyway, they divide weekends, Friday evening, Saturday and Sunday, they divide into different chunks, right? So, it's weekend, but one chunk I'll spend on finishing my homework, one chunk I will, spend time with my friends, one chunk I will do self-care, right? Do yoga, meditation. One chunk I will spend cleaning my room, right? Calling my parents and all that. So you know about the chunkies?
Oh, time block.
Time blocker is what they call. They have this, and your generation, you have so many other words, right? So I think it's called chunkies, something like that. So in a way, so that's how you divide. Even when you study, when you're studying, if you get distracted, read something else. Move on to another subject. Okay? That's how you can get back your attention.
So the next question reads, it's from Desarduma. Tibetan Buddhism teaches compassion, but in the harsh reality of politics, compassion often seems impractical. How would you advise we reconcile or balance our philosophical principles with the real-world demands of fighting for freedom?
We are very compassionate to each other, right? We are sharing mics, Now, compassion, again, I believe in compassion-based courage, okay? Compassion doesn't, when we say show compassion to your enemy or others, it doesn't mean, it does mean, yes, you should show compassion to your enemy or others, but actually what it means is compassion to yourself. It's for your own physical well-being and for your mental health. Now, if you don't resort to compassion, if you resort to anger, you stress out, you lose sleep, yes or no? You lose appetite, next day you're groggy, and after a few days you look like zombie. Yes or no?
Yes.
Right? Because you don't resort to compassion, but you resort to anger. If you resort to compassion, number one, it's for your own physical well-being. You sleep better, you eat better, you're less stressed. So, it's good if you can show compassion to others, but it's better for you, right? So compassion doesn't mean that if someone says nasty things to you, you just forgive and hurt yourself. It just means, hey, how do I respond to that? Respond to that by saying, you know what? For my own physical well-being and for my own mental, health, I will be compassionate. Now, the best way to defeat your enemy is when someone says nasty things to you, when someone backbite you, someone gossip behind you, or someone come out in social media, criticize you, you show up, you smile, you stand tall. What happens? The other person who's been shouting at you will be like, what the hell, man? I've been saying goddamn these things, but this guy is not affected at all, right? And always, it doesn't affect me. I smile, I stand tall, I show up, I say my point of view, and that person is stressed out. That person, what else can I do to bring that person down? If you are compassionate, you can't do anything to bring that person down. If you stress out, you lose appetite, you lose sleep, you look groggy, then the enemy beats you. You see? So compassion-based courage is much more stronger than hatred-based. Okay?
How do you think the relation between Russia and China and other communist countries will affect the spread of democracy? Do you think this will spark World War III, and do you think Tibet can gain freedom through this?
5 questions. I went to Ukraine and I noticed, this is my organic analysis, okay? We all talk about West not doing enough to support Ukraine to win the war. Yes? We all say that. We all read about it. After going to Ukraine, I realized that China is not doing enough to Russia to win the war. But China is helping Russia to drain Russia. If you prolong the war, what happens? Russia is spending anywhere from 120 to 150 billion dollars a year. If war goes on, they keep spending this 120 to 50 billion dollars a year, then what happens? Russia's economy will be drained. Number two, NATO will be drained. NATO is spending so much money to help Ukraine, but not enough. And they're losing billions of dollars, okay, 60 to 70 billion dollars a year. America is supporting Ukraine. America is spending anywhere from 50 to 75 billion dollars a year. And then America is also drained. All their arms, ammunitions are depleted, NATO and America. Thereby, Taiwan is affected because all the arms that America was supposed to give and sell to Taiwan is delayed. Now China is killing 4 birds with 1 stone. Draining Russia, making Russia, instead of junior partner, a minor partner. Draining NATO, draining America, and delaying arms to Taiwan. And the war fatigue is on. So if China invades Taiwan in 2027, war fatigue will be so much that no one will come and help Taiwan.
Wow.
You see? And I will answer the question, right? Whether there will be a war or not. I think the American experts are saying so, and I do believe there will be a war over Taiwan.
Last question. In today's increasingly divided world, how can young Tibetans advocate for unity within our own Tibetan societies?
Yeah, think of yourself as Tibetan. And then Tibet as your cause. As we say in Tibet, you are Kangjeba, you know. Tibetans in Tibet are suffering. Tibet is disappearing from the map, from history books. Now China is saying you can't call Tibet a Tibet, but Xizang. That's an existential threat. Given this threat, there's no time for us to think in terms of regionalism, or Umaylam, or Rangzewala, or Sanjo, Ningjo, none of it. Just focus on what you have to do. I always think like that, you see. So, again, so many people call me names, right? But I don't give a damn. I pack my suitcase, right? Did you see me at the airport? 1 suitcase, right? Small suitcase. That suitcase has all the things that I need for 22 days. I think less than what you carry when you go to India, okay? Yes or no? You have two suitcases, yes? That's enough for me for 22 days. I pack my bag and I say, okay, I'll go to 8 different places and I can spend only 48 hours to 72 hours in one place. And I have to travel like 16 hours by flight or 8 hours by flight. Doesn't matter. I just pack my bag and all the events are not big ones. Huh? The Korea has barely 20 plus Tibetans. But they just registered their organization this year. And they want to celebrate His Holiness Nobel Peace Prize Day. And then they invited me. They said, this is such an important event for us. Can I come? To go from America to Korea is quite a long distance, right? But then I said, you're only 20 Tibetans, yes? And you are making so much efforts to celebrate His Holiness, Nobel Peace Prize Day. And His Holiness also issued a statement for them. They said, we're trying. And I said, why not? So I'm not going there because it's going to be a big event, because there are only 20 Tibetans. Right? And that's we are trying to get as many Koreans as possible. Unfortunately, President of Korea declared martial law. It became such a big issue. Right? And there were supposed to be 200,000 protesting in the streets. At the time I was landing at the airport, okay? And there will be a traffic jam. My flight was supposed to land at 10 p.m. and I was supposed to get to the airport at 12 p.m. It's a long distance from the airport, okay? By midnight, now if there's a huge protest, I might get to my room at 5 a.m. or something like that, right? It's crazy stuff, But still, I said, why not? I didn't change a thing. I landed in Korea. There were a few Tibetans. I met them, and I had excellent Korean food. I enjoyed, but I go there, and then I can for Singapore. It's another event. It's Asia Society training young leaders. Top leaders of Asia, 60 or 70 of them are there, and I had to chair a panel and speak. That's a very influential panel. Top leaders, young leaders of Asia, right? So I have like different panels, different engagements. But then I always say, pack my bag, just go to all the events. If it's a small event, very important event, influential event or not. And then in Taiwan, right? I met very influential people, and then future plans. I said, because more you go, more you meet people, more you impress them. First, in diplomacy, knowing someone is more important than your position. Right? So you go, you meet them, and they're impressed. They say, "Oh, can you come to my, university next time?" I go speak at university, right? Then they'll say, "Oh, could you address the, university level event?" Then they invite you to other major events. That's how I get invited, and I just show up, and I participate fully. And then that's how I upgrade my, importance. So no egos, right? Just show up and then treat others like human, and then they will respect you, impress with your knowledge, and they will upgrade your, participation.
Thank you all for such a great questions. And so we're going to wrap it up now. First and foremost, I want to extend heartfelt thank you to Dr. Lobsang Sangay for being here with us and for engaging in such an inspiring and meaningful competition with all the youth here. This event is made possible by collaboration between TAFM and 4 incredible youth organizations include SFT, Umaylam, RTWA, and RTYC. On behalf of all the organization, we would like to offer a kata as a token of our appreciation and respect for Dr. Lobsang Sangay.
I just want to, this is a youth-led event, right? So I want to thank all the youth leaders and participants, because I also started as a, student leader, student activist, a student leader, youth leader. So, it's very, very important. And for example, Gorshe, I always say this, it's a youth-led organic movement, It's kind of an organic revolution on our part. I do remember in 1990s and 2000, when first Tibetans came here, it was so difficult, right, to persuade Tibetans to dance and to learn Tibetan language, prayer books and things like that. But then now, Tibetan youth, right, through Gorshe, they love to dress, they love to dance, they love to sing. No one, now parents will be scolded by their children if you don't take them to Gorshe, right? It's the other way around. Before, parents used to scold children, they refuse to go. Now, it's beautiful, no? So, from Lhasa to Chengdu to Toronto to Minnesota, right? To Boston to New York, everywhere, Dharamsala, right? Wednesday, Gorshe, amazing. This is youth-led movement, huh? There's purity in youth. You don't think of regionalism, you don't think of this and that, right? You have Umaylam group, which is good, but you have Tibetan Youth Congress as well, which is good. So another also event in France. Remember when that Tibetan boy was killed in a Chinese restaurant? 10,000, right? Tibetans came out of the street. Some say 20,000. Who organized those protests? Youth. So our future is with youth, and I do believe, seeing you guys, our Tibet issue will be in a much better place, and we will put You guys will put Tibet in the global agenda, okay? So with that, I want to thank all of you.